What do you consider the biggest threat to humanity? Ocean ecosystems collapsing. The rate at which the populations of fish have decreased are alarming, with common fish like tuna decreasing by 97% in the past few decades due to overfishing. Coral reefs dying, fish getting extinct. It's all because of us, and it'll come back to haunt us, and it already is. The oceans contain 85% of all life on Earth, and yet we let these big companies throw one garbage truck full of trash into them every single minute. I imagine the oceans will be completely dead by 2070 or before, if it continues the way it is. I really find it interesting how we always talk about save the rainforest, and yes, we do need to do that, but we never talk about our oceans as saving them. The oceans affect the environment more than rainforest, and yet it seems like what we care about is save the turtles don't use straws, when in reality, that has very little impact, straws, versus all the other things we do to our oceans. I feel like the whole Save the Trees campaign backfired. All it did was allow companies to package things in plastic instead of paper products, in which plastic literally kills ocean life, whereas sure, cutting down trees does, but not near to the effect as plastic, and paper is biodegradable. I know cost is also a reason why companies use plastic versus paper as well. I noticed something the other day. I care about people, I don't want anyone to suffer, but I don't really think about caring about something until I actually see something that needs to be changed and cared about. I started wondering, if we cared before we noticed we needed to care, maybe we'd be better off. Like, instead of being complacent until we see something that is wrong, if we chose to actively care all the time, maybe we would notice more things, and could prevent them. Just random thoughts that enter my mind. Many people nowadays feel miserable, and the amount of people with mental illness seems gravely underestimated, if you ask me. Miserable people don't have the capacity to save the planet, unfortunately. I think that's actually a really interesting moral complexity to apathy that needs to be explored, discussed more. If life is a finite amount of time, is it wrong for a person to simply want to enjoy their life, rather than attempt to dedicate to changing a future? Perhaps they want to simply relax and enjoy their finite life instead of wasted, stressed, anxious, and feeling doomed about the outcome and future of the Earth humanity. Everything seems to be turning into crabs with calcination. Maybe the crab people will have a better time with the whole industrial society thing than we did. Gonna be hard for them since we've used most of the oil and stuff, but we might all die from climate disasters before the oil is all gone, so good for crab people. Good luck, guys. Short-sightedness and selfishness. Most people can't contemplate more than a decade or so in the future, let alone several generations past their own lives. I think this is part of the reason why religions first came to be, as a way to encourage a lifestyle that made sure you left the world in a better place, had a positive impact on your community and future generations. Human selfishness and ego have always been an issue. The only difference is that now there's so many of us, and we're so advanced and interconnected, that our selfishness is putting the future of all civilizations at risk. I got my PhD studying infectious bacteria, and used to develop new antibiotics in biopharma. It's really hard, and most pharma companies completely shut down their bacteriology, and many, virology as well, departments over the last 5 to 10 years, because there's no money in it. Eventually even things like minor surgery will be life-threatening due to infection. Climate change. We're going to have massive problems in my life. I dread to think what kind of world my kids will be living in when they're grown up. Lots are asking why I would have kids. Rather than respond to each of them, I'll answer you all here. Our kids weren't born yesterday. We decided to have kids about 6 to 7 years ago. Back then, Donald Trump was a reality TV host and businessman. The US might flip between Democrat and Republican, but both were fairly centrist, by USA standards. Jair Bolsonaro was climbing his way up to power, and I'd never heard the name. He's now burning more rainforest than anyone ever before. Boris Johnson was the clown mayor of London, and there was no way he'd get near actual power. The EU referendum was on the way, but there was no way the UK would vote leave. The latest IPCC report was that some warming would happen, but if we all took notice now, we could limit warming to around 1.5 degrees. Eco-diesels were a thing. I bought one based on the lower carbon emissions. Seriously, fuck you VW and any other car manufacturers who have done similar things. Everyone should watch the Dirty Money episode about the emissions scandal. It's on Netflix. The world isn't angry enough about this. Offshore wind had become cheaper per kilowatts hour than nuclear. We were on the cusp of a green energy revolution. The world really has gone to shit in the last few years. Oceanic eco-collapse, but indirectly. You see, dolphin predators are dying, and the prey more abundant. Dolphins are going to mass produce at an insane scale, and grow more and more intelligent as they are already insanely smart. Us humans will pay no attention to them as we think we are better, but in 5,000 years they will overcome us, and take over the surface. Humanity-dolphin galactic wars will ensue, and humanity will ultimately fall. Climate disaster. We are past the point of no return at this point, and everybody is blissfully going along not realizing how real it's about to become. Our children and grandchildren are going to live in a harsher and far less verdant world. In our lifetimes and definitely in theirs, billions of people are going to starve. Wars are going to be fought over meager resources. If we were to entirely cut our carbon emissions right now, we are still on a 30-year glide path of rising temps. But since we won't, we will slide farther down up the scale of consequences. We will get to watch Florida become an archipelago. Boston and many cities on the east and western coastlines of the US are going to become something like Venice. Places like Venice are going to become dive destinations. My favorite Edward Bernays quote, "The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. This is a logical result of the way in which our democratic society is organized. Vast numbers of human beings must cooperate in this manner, if they are to live together as a smoothly functioning society. In almost every act of our daily lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business, in our social conduct or our ethical thinking, we are dominated by the relatively small number of persons who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. It is they who pull the wires which control the public mind." Edward Bernays, Propaganda. The biggest threat to humanity has always and will always be greed. There's so much corruption in every system we have. Why? Because people need more money or power, wanting more to feel powerful. No matter where, there's always corruption somewhere in our city, state, or country. Hell, I could be wrong, but honestly that's how I see it. Everyone needs something. But it requires money. Humanity will go on even after the collapse of government and small self-governed groups. The biggest threat would be a catastrophic global mass extinction event, probably caused by the weakening of Earth's magnetic field, which allows radiation to penetrate the atmosphere and wreak havoc on DNA. Not to mention the numerous seismic shifts and increased activity which leads to more natural disasters, etc., etc. Blind faith. Not religious faith. Any blind faith where an individual ignores his or her own consciousness and morals to blindly follow what another being tells him or her. Examples include, and are not limited to, capitalism, communism, religion, political parties, local communities, even families. We should all have a set of morals, and have each word we hear go through that filter. Oil and our dependence on this stuff. We're in a position where we can spot the issues with what we are doing wrong, both as an individual and as a society. However, due to how the economy and infrastructure works, and how much power the industries have over us, we're unable to fix said issues. We know oil is running out, we know it's destroying our environment, yet there is very little we can do against it, because it is economically disadvantageous for us not to drive or try to boycott said oil companies. Yes, we're getting better, but it's at a snail's pace. Every day we're closer to the point of no return, and it feels like we're sitting on our hands. And then there's the whole army of brain-dead idiots that believe shit like COVID isn't real, or the earth is flat, and will go out of their way to damage any attempts to fix the problem, just so they can feel validated. Mark my words. Well, when you really get down to the details, it's really hard to kill humanity entirely right now. Even with all our nukes, most of the southern hemisphere would be left untouched. Wouldn't be a great time for the species, but we'd get through it alright. Scientists say they've most likely detected all the dinosaur-tier asteroids, so that's unlikely. But if one does hit, we're screwed outright. All the way down to the European country killers, they say the vast majority have been detected, so chances are an asteroid impact won't be species-ending either, since there are no asteroids big enough that we don't know about. In terms of ecological collapse, we have centuries to find technological replacements for the functions of nature, and we're already making progress on that stuff now. We have GMO farm plants that can survive harsher conditions and are more efficient. We can grow meat in labs, and we can probably bioengineer superplankton to replace a dying ocean plankton population for oxygen and fishing. Gamma-ray bursts are a candidate, but recent reports suggest they may not be quite as dangerous as we originally thought they'd be. And they'd need to be aimed directly at us from a burst within our own galaxy, which we can measure whether a star is likely to go supernova and what kind of explosion it will go. There are no candidates in our galaxy for sniping us with a GRB. There could be a rogue planet in the interstellar space that enters our solar system and throws off our orbit. This is hard to disprove because it's just so dark out there, and if it is true, there's very little we could do to stop it. If Earth's orbit is changed too much, no amount of genetic modification would save our crops. Humanity is in a really tough spot, but there is potential to survive depending on how bad it is. This is, of course, super unlikely. And then the thing I think is the biggest threat to our species. Aliens. All the other ideas are an event happening that really doesn't intend to kill humans. It'll happen and then give us the opportunity to survive and come back. Or in the case of climate change, it'll happen so slowly that it'd be hard not to adapt using technology and survive. Aliens are different. If they want us dead, they can do it intelligently. And if that happens, we're doomed. They can hurl asteroids at us that otherwise weren't a threat, decapitating all of society, and just destroy any bunker that happened to survive the impact using the myriad of other weapons they have. There's no escape. Uncontrolled wealth. The super rich understand the crises we have coming: overpopulation, climate, shrinking resources, and their strategy at this point is to create a world for them and let the rest of us die off. Rich people think they are rich because they deserve it, and others aren't because they don't deserve it, that they are inherently worthy of inheriting the earth. Mass psychosis. Masses of people being manipulated by a lie. Like the energy crisis, for example. Energy is free. We figured it out. It's called nuclear. Don't build them with fundamental errors and they are a godsend, with no bad side effects. The only reason they are pumping wind and solar is because people get rich off of wind and solar. Also burn natural gas in cars, trucks and tractors instead of gasoline. NG burns perfectly clean. It is cheap and plentiful. We know how to do it, but electric cars are pumped because people get rich off of them. Big rock hurtling through space and hitting the planet. Your personal odds of being killed by an asteroid or meteorite are better than being killed by lightning. But this is because of the odds calculations based on mass extinction events. And so, if you die from a big rock, there's a really good chance that everyone else will too. Global capitalism as it exists right now. A system that incentivizes the abuse of finite natural resources, poisons or destroys the environment, leaves billions destitute, and perpetuates itself. The current system is almost certainly going to lead to the end of our lives as we know them. The climate is already changing in ways we can't take back, and climate change functions in a positive feedback loop. Things are already going to get worse. Anything we do right now decides how much worse. Capitalism, or more accurately human greed, which has created the capitalist system. While many great achievements have occurred through the successes of capitalism, we are now facing the very beginning of extinction through climate change. The causes of climate change are greatly exacerbated by capitalist ideals and practices, and the only way to prevent some of these problems from occurring is to ignore profit and material gain for many years, in order to restructure the way our world works. Energy production can no longer rely on burning fossil fuel, for example, but the trillion-dollar oil and natural gas industry will never ever allow that to happen. I worry for my future children and their children. The next generation is going to have a lot of cleaning up to do, if they even want a slim chance of survival. I have hope that many people recognize the severity of these problems, and I truly believe that those of us who want to make a change will have the opportunity to do so eventually, myself included. It just takes all of us working together for the betterment of humanity, not working independently to fuel personal greed and material wealth.